welcome Ben Murphy, CEO of Murphy Hospitality Group and Whitecap Entertainment, to the Music You're Missing podcast. How are you doing?
Great. Happy to be here. And you?
I'm very excited. We kind of just chatted off camera about my recent love for PEI. You're born and raised PEI?
Born and raised in PEI. I've traveled a little bit, but I've always found my way back here.
That's awesome. Yeah, I obviously, when I was there, I spoke to a lot of locals, and it seems like if you're born there, you don't necessarily want to leave.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of people that leave for a bit, and like a lot of my friends left for maybe their 20s, and then you find in their late 30s when they start having kids and stuff, they'll kind of find their way back.
All roads lead to home.
Exactly. Which is, I think that's pretty similar everywhere.
But yeah, it was truly gorgeous. Like, it wasn't just it was so different. It wasn't just like any other vacation that I had. It was so unique, and I just knew I needed to go back. And when I saw that Sommo was happening, I really knew I needed to go back. And I want to talk about Sommo, but before we do that, I'd actually love to dive into your role a little bit more as the CEO of Murphy Hospitality Group and Whitecap Entertainment, which extends beyond Sommo. What is your role? What's your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, so Murphy Hospitality Group was started by my parents in 1980, and it was mainly a hotel and restaurant. Started as a restaurant, moved into a hotel and restaurant company for 20-ish years. So we're still very involved in those two industries. In the very late 90s, we got into the craft beer scene. So we own the PEI Brewing Company. I don't know if you had any of those beers when you were here, but in 2009, we were one of the partners and founding people of Cavendish Beach Music Festival, which is Whitecap. So we have, kind of like 4 divisions, all kind of connect in the hospitality industry, and kind of just, again, welcoming people like yourself, and to PEI, and kind of get to kind of touch them in multiple different places over their visit, hopefully.
It's interesting to learn the Cavendish Beach Music Festival. You said it kicked off in 2009.
Yeah.
You're kind of ahead of the curve in the music festival scene. How did you know you wanted to do such a thing?
Yeah, so it started with 4 partners who were all heavily involved in the tourism industry, which is one of our major industries here on PEI. And obviously we get lots of peaks in the summer with the summer months, which a lot of our visitors arrive. But there's definitely some slower periods in the shoulder season. So, one guy had a piece of land. One guy, we were involved, obviously, in the hospitality industry. Another guy was involved in like the scrap metal business and garbage business. So it was just like we had a connection to the entertainment buyer, and one thing led to another, and we picked a traditionally slow weekend in the PEI tourism calendar. And 15 years later, I think it would be one of the busiest weekends in the PEI tourism calendar. So that's amazing, and obviously the spin-offs for that, not just us, but all the industries around PEI, it's beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, and for listeners that might not be familiar with the Cavendish Beach Music Festival, it's legit. I saw that you had Tyler Childers recently. Like, you have some A-list. Oh my gosh, amazing. You got some A-listers. Do you find that kind of helped put PEI on the map, at least in the entertainment space?
For sure. Yeah, I think it's, even starting Sommo last year, the line I used a lot was like, it's very difficult to convince people to come to a festival that doesn't exist in a place they never heard of. So, that was even more difficult, I would say, as you're starting to, dip your toe in the water in the music industry in 2009, because nobody even heard of us, and we really had no reputation in the thing. So, you just keep putting offers in, and eventually, and now Cavendish is pretty, well known, and people want to come back, and we've, had artists kind of move up the chain, and headliners be back multiple times, and it's kind of a stop on people's summer schedule.
Yeah. So with Cavendish Beach Music Festival established, what led to the inspiration of adding Sommo to the mix?
Yeah, it was kind of always the plan. It just took way too long, to be honest, I think. So during COVID, we ended up coming down to one one partner, one owner of the festival, which was us, and it made things a little kind of easier to maneuver. And
Mhm.
Sommo was just, we always wanted to do a multi-genre. I didn't want to box ourselves into like a specific thing, and be able just to share, different genres of great music and bring that to the East Coast and Prince Edward Island. So yeah, and then we've kind of got lucky last year with Mumford, and finally convinced someone, and then the rest is history.
Seriously, for the very first Sommo Festival, it attracted 20,000 attendees, and it was really well praised. I went through a bunch of articles, and everyone was like, "It's so family friendly, it's so clean, it was really well organized." Were there? I mean, obviously, you have the Cavendish Beach Music Festival going, but was there anything specific that you learned from the inaugural Sommo Fest that you're taking into this year?
Yeah, I think. Well, I'm sure we'll get into it, but like the food and drink side, obviously, that's what we do on a daily basis. But that was something that I really wanted to kind of lean into, and not just music for solo. So to do that for 20,000 people, you think you have it all planned out, but just continuing to, how do you make old fashions for 20,000 people with a big lineup? Some of this stuff takes time, and just, being able to do that in a speed that everybody wants with the quality that you want will always be a challenge, I think,
Yeah.
especially as crowds grow. But, that's something that the fans really bought into last year, which was nice to see, which was kind of like our dream. But all our chef focused food stations and our high end cocktail stations and even the culinary stage, was lined up all day.
Yeah, I would love to kind of talk more about the festival beyond the music because it seems like you obviously do have the hospitality background and divisions. Why is this different than another music festival? It seems like you actually have a focus on like the culinary and beverage expertise.
Yeah, I think with our expertise, but also just what happens here on PEI, and obviously like we're very well known for terrific shellfish and obviously potatoes, but just farming and fishing are big industries here that we wanted to kind of highlight, and then that leads kind of or led itself into there's so many great local chefs around Atlantic Canada that we wanted to highlight as well, and I think people are demanding more. I think from festivals too is
Yeah.
no, long gone are the days where you can only have one drink option or just hot dog and fries. And like nothing against a good hot dog and fries, but it's when you're there for 2 or 3 days, I think the clientele wants some different options. So to be able to do that with their chefs while highlighting a bunch of our producers is really what it's all about, because we want more people come back to PEI, maybe that use Sommo or Cavendish as their first trip to come back some other time throughout the year.
That's like awesome to hear. I don't know. I'm sure you're tuned into other festivals. I won't say which one, but there was a festival this year that got so much bad PR because they didn't have water stations like to fill your water cup. And I just think about how you're offering all like this like culinary excellence and farm fresh food, and these people wouldn't even offer free water. um, it makes me even more excited to head to the festival.
Yeah, we did have to add a couple more water stations this year because they've been such a hit. So it was, which is great to see, and obviously makes us the whole event a little bit more sustainable, which is great.
Yeah, you mentioned getting Mumford and Sons last year. I mean, this year you've got Noah Kahan, who is just a fantastic get. He's one of the most sought out artists in the entire industry right now. How did the idea of even approaching to ask him come to be?
Yeah, it's nice that it went this way for sure, because when you book him, it's a long time ago, and he's just been absolutely on fire,
Yeah.
which is awesome. Uh, I think so much to do with us is routing. We're out of the way, we know it, and to get they kind of have to be at least coming to the Northeast or coming around, because no one wants to fly across North America to and to come to PEI. That'd be out of their way. And then obviously, right, I think we booked him like right before Christmas last year or something like that. And he was just, I think he was on SNL. He had some of those huge hits and was just releasing uh, different song with a different artist. I feel like it was like every week there for a
Yep.
bit, and has just exploded. And I can't wait to see him play the stage on 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks from yesterday.
I know that he's just such a fitting artist, especially where he does have roots in the Northeast. I would imagine he's probably bringing a lot of folks maybe over that international border. Can you speak to like some of the tourism you're expecting? Is it on par with the previous year in Cavendish Beach Music Festival, or do you find that there are more folks traveling internationally for this year?
Yeah, we have about 80% of the people that come to the festival are from off island, so
Oh wow.
it's quite a number. Um, but definitely with Sommo, and I think it just has to do maybe with the different types of music we seen last year and are seeing this year. There's more like long haul people like deciding to make a trip out of it. And I don't know, maybe if country music's just a little bit more niche or something where it's a little closer to home.
Hmm.
But yeah, I just feel that I think we have like at least one ticket from like most of the states, each state,
Wow.
and yeah, from all over the country in Canada. So it's obviously some of that praise that you mentioned earlier was beneficial last year, and it never hurts when Maggie and Mumford cover a Taylor Swift song. So that was a nice little surprise, I guess.
Viral moments born at Sommo.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of bringing it back to the tourism aspect, can you, and it obviously hasn't happened, so maybe you don't know, but I imagine the festival does bring in some economic benefits for Cavendish and the PEI community. Is there anything that you can share like tangibly about like how much it did bring in terms of like tourism and economic growth?
Yeah, each year's a little bit different, but I would say like pretty consistently, Cavendish is somewhere in the ballpark of 15 to 20 million of economic development around PEI.
Wow.
So obviously that's a huge number, especially on a weekend that historically has been slow. And I expect Sommo probably to be something similar this year, which is going to hopefully have lots of spin-offs because September, obviously we're, quite busy in July and August. September is probably one of my favorite months. So I think Sommo is going to be a nice fit. And people have lots of capacity in September.
Before I get into some questions I have for you, just advice questions, I'm kind of curious, what is the long-term goal for Soma? Where would you like to see it grow into and the legacy that it leaves behind?
Yeah, I think, two sides of it. Obviously, the music side of things, I want, PEI to live in a place that appreciates great music, and obviously to do that, I think there has to a spot where we can bring some of the world class artists to. So I'm happy to be able to do that, while also kind of sprinkling in some of the East Coast or Prince Edward Island artists to kind of give them access to a festival of this size where they might not be able to do that elsewhere, and maybe catapults their career to some other height. Who
Mm-hmm.
knows? And then on the same thing too is just to continue to highlight PEI, the food and the drink part of things. Whether it's selfishly our brewery, but we have another brewery from PEI. We got a brewery from New Brunswick, Nova Scotia. So we have all these craft breweries that we want to highlight, cideries, distilleries, all that, all those amazing producers, and then the actual purveyors of all that stuff. And again, if people come and enjoy it, whether they come back or maybe they'll purchase a product when they go back home, I think it can be pretty powerful when you bring in 20, 30, 40,000 people
Yeah.
to a spot that they might not ever heard of.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is you're pretty much already there. So it'll just continue to grow and have an impactful legacy. You did just bring up a great point that I do want to highlight. And I know Canada is just really great about this. Anytime I've done any type of music work, is they highlight and showcase artists from their homegrown artists. And you definitely are giving Canadian artists the stage as well on such a coveted lineup. I mean, to say that they're on the same lineup as Greta Van Fleet, Maren Morris, Noah Kahan, I just think that's amazing that you're not forgetting them in the shuffle.
Yeah, and I think some of them too are just have like that had nothing to do with us, but have really grown. Like beaches are opening for Greta.
Mm-hmm.
They've been just on fire lately. Adam Baldwin at Halifax. He's opening for Noah, so
Wow.
that's going to be a fun set to see. He's been uh, playing a lot over the east coast of Canada over the last 10, 15 years, so it's nice to see him up there too.
Yeah, no, again, I'm super excited. I think it's going to be such a unique atmosphere. And yeah, I can't wait 2 more weeks. That being said, a lot of our listeners are artists, independent artists, or industry folk, or people that are interested in becoming an industry folk. So if you don't mind, I have a few questions I'd like to ask you on behalf of them. My first is, what advice would you give to artists who are trying to get booked at music festivals like Sommo?
Two kind of two ways I'd look at that. Probably, I think the live show is so important, and you never know who is in your crowd when you're playing. I think that is something that's overlooked, whether it's 10 people or 1,000 people. I've been to shows where you go in, you don't have no idea who the person is, and then they have a great show, and then they end up playing Cavendish next year. I think that serendipitous motives, or whatever you want to call it, can be super powerful. And then on the business side of things too, and this is where probably maybe artists don't naturally go as much, is I think that's overlooked a little bit, is just the professionalism and the back and forth and the persistence that you need on pre-festival, and then also like when you get on festival, to be organized and ready to go, to be a to make things go and as smooth as possible when you arrive on site. There's planning that goes with that, but that's noticed as well from our production manager all the way up to us. Is, oh geez, that person was great to work with. Well, I can tell you, that person gets booked a hell of a lot quicker again than the person that is, a train wreck or difficult to work with when they come on site. So that stuff I think is maybe not thought about maybe as much.
That is a fantastic point. I feel like I've asked that question a lot, and you're right. People don't, not only the artists not think about it, but I feel like it's also not necessarily told to them either. And I've witnessed, being at a music festival and doing podcasts at them, and artists coming up to me that weren't on my lineup, being like, "Oh, I'd love to." Not even I would love to come on the show, but they'd be like, "Oh, I'm so drunk right now. Like, can I get?" I'm like, "No, I'm here doing my job. Like, there is a level of professionalism that needs to be had." And obviously, if we can help you out, we will. And obviously, it's way more important when you're trying to, attract festival folk for future gigs. So yeah, professionalism
Yeah.
is huge.
And we have probably over 50 acts.
Yeah,
So you want to stand out as a good one makes a big difference, and to stand out as one of the bad ones is it's going to be very difficult to come back.
yeah, yeah. In a similar vein, what advice do you have for those interested in a career specifically on the music festival side of things?
Yeah, the I think planning is so important. It's overlooked a bit. It's just like the work that goes into prior to the festivals. Festivals are chaotic in nature, so if you can help reduce that, I think that's important. But I say to my team before every festival too, is like, we are the steady hand on the wheel, and I think that's, as shit hits the fan or something's not going exactly as we plan, I think that calmness and that, you know comfortable in the chaos kind of thing is very important, and that's kind of where you see people shine and see people crumble.
Definitely. Good. I'm gonna take that into consideration too as I as I get stressed out anytime I do any type of festival things. But Ben, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And maybe it's just because you're from PEI and everyone there is awesome. But you're a delight to chat with. Before we
Awesome.
wrap, I do wrap every interview with this question. Beyond your career, which obviously we just spent some time talking about, what's a personal goal you have in the near future that you hope to accomplish?
Personal goal. Well, I just went. This was kind of career too, but my wife and I just went to Red Rocks for the first time. So like that was like bucket list material. So
Who
I
did you
feel
see?
like we seen Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats at
Amazing.
Red Rocks. So it was like that would have been on the top of the list probably. But just again, as corny as it sounds, probably just spend more time with family and friends everyone's busy, and I feel like life just goes so quick.